I recently delivered a discussion at my local Unitarian Universalist Congregation while the Reverend was away at the UU General Assembly. And I was asked by several people to please make a condensed version that I could then post and share, and sounds pretty cool. So, mainly racism. Racism is something that is absolutely fascinating to me, not just in a I'm filled with rage kind of way, but in a kind of clinical, biological, why on earth do we have this kind of way. I think that a non-judgmental and a reasoned, clear-headed approach to racist thought can really help us kind of understand why these thoughts and these emotions exist. Now, a lot of this is drawn from the book Hatred by Willard Galen. I recently read that book and it kind of really sparked my interest. But from an evolutionary biological perspective, racism and a whole host of other behaviors, by the way, makes a lot of sense for an organism like us. If you're constantly being chased by saber-toothed tigers and you're constantly facing the threat of starvation, anything that breaks from the norm of your experience or breaks from the norm of your tribe, whatever perspective you're looking at from, anything that's abnormal is going to cause alarm bells. We are suspicious of the unknown and the other because, well, our cave ancestors, that helped them survive. Now, a lot of the really weird stuff that causes psychological problems these days are holdovers from an evolutionary period that we don't necessarily need anymore. Holdovers and habits that used to help us survive, but we don't live in that world anymore. Racism is a bit of a holdover on that. Now, the thing that's interesting about how people look at race, though, is the fact that hatred and prejudicial thinking is not just an overtly aggressive thing. There are strata of it, and this is where the writing of Willard Galen comes in. There are varying levels of racist thought and racist, really, personality and expression. It's important to understand the difference between these because you can get a lot of insight into a person this way. It starts with prejudicial thinking, racist thinking. There are plenty of racists out there who wouldn't hurt anyone, right? They're just racist, and they make decisions and they make assumptions based on the appearance of a person and their cultural association. Those people are not above redemption, right? Oftentimes, all they need is a personal experience with someone of that appearance, and that kind of lizard brain mentality goes away. Now, racism and prejudicial thinking has a more extreme version, and this is middle of the line, and that's bigotry. People throw around the word bigotry so damn much, and they don't really understand what it actually means. Bigotry is when you believe that a person does not deserve the same rights as you. So, and this is people use bigotry as a catch-all kind of insulting term for someone who's racist. Oh, you're just a bigot. And I'm always like, you don't know what you're saying. And because that's an actual application of a technical term. If you believe homosexuals do not have the right to marry, unfortunately, that is a bigoted belief. I'm not making a value judgment on you. You have the right to have bigoted beliefs. But it is bigoted because you are essentially denying rights to a different group. You're denying rights that you enjoy based upon some type of identity. Now, bigotry is not above redemption either. Bigotry is a little bit more entrenched. If you're bigoted, you don't really see people as people. They don't deserve the rights that you have. You're in a much more antagonistic relationship with these people, but you're not necessarily a monster yet. You may acquiesce if monsters want to act upon more heinous stuff. Now, the last part of the spectrum is hatred. Now, hatred is racism. Hatred is bigotry. But hatred takes it a step further, that hatred has a bit of a sociopathic component to it. It has a sadistic component to it. Hatred is a very destructive thing. Hatred is what causes us to, conduct mass killings. And there's something just absolutely fundamentally wrong with the brain possessed of hatred. In a lot of ways, racism and bigotry need to be confronted, and they need to be discussed. Because a society that is made up of people who are bigoted is going to be much more likely to acquiesce to leaders and social forces that are giving into hatred. Hatred also has that obsessive element to it that makes it incredibly dark and incredibly aggressive. Now, the main point I made with my talk is that if you want to make a better society, and you want to have a more open society, and you want people to, you just want to kind of create a better world, it's not necessarily a good idea to just go and attack the racists. Racism does have a fundamental root in who we are. It's a survival mechanism, and it's worked for, hundreds of thousands of years. And so when you confront someone who holds these beliefs, they're going to hold on to them because it is a survival mechanism. If you antagonize them and you mock them, you're going to drive them further away from rationality, and they're going to cling to the intuition of racist and prejudicial thought because it makes them feel safer. This is not an insult to their intelligence. Intelligence has a tendency to kind of segue down the middle between intuition, which is gut feelings, and, instinct, and rational thinking. Rational thinking is more when you're using your higher developed brain. Here's the thing. Both sides of this equation are just as valuable. Intuition is incredibly important for basic everyday survival. Rational thinking is important for doing things like building rockets and doing philosophy. But don't discount intuition. It is a valuable form of intelligence. But intuition has some flaws that make it self-destructive too. If you have a more intuitive mind, it's important to at least have the rational capacity to see the fact that the people that you may be typecasting in this way, they are not some two-dimensional cardboard cutout of a human. They're human too. When you treat them like, flat, one-dimensional things, when you start talking about taking rights away, you are doing damage to a human. You do have a responsibility to connect with the suffering of others, and not just to simply put on your white hood and separate yourself from your brothers and sisters in humanity. So when I see Reddit communities like Behold the Master Race, where they're making fun of members of the KKK for being morbidly obese or being inbred looking, you're not helping. You're not solving anything. You are employing the same prejudicial tactics and the same sort of lizard brain that a racist person, that a bigoted person, that a person possessed of hatred employs when they typecast and simplify the human being that they are discussing. Understand that and work on your communication skills. Thank you.